Okay, hello and welcome back to the Christian Reeve podcast. Happy New Year. It is now 2026. Yes, I know I'm a few days into it, or 5 days to be precise. I don't know if I necessarily will release the show today. I might not. Who knows? Maybe it'll be in a few days from now. In any case, I am rambling. Here we are. It's the new year. New year, new me. Absolute cringe. I mean, a lot's changed in my life, but still, I've always found that notion to just be absolutely cringeworthy. Only because, and we'll get into this in today's show, but it's just trend hopping, isn't it? And every year with New Year's, it's the same BS every single time. But I thought what might be fun is today we'll kind of look at the good and the bad of New Year's resolutions, and also a little bit of history as well. I was quite surprised by this, and I think you'll maybe learn something too. So let's jump into it. New Year's resolutions, the history of New Year's resolutions. I got this particular information from history.com. So you can go on there and find a lot of stuff on there about history. Imagine that. So the history of New Year's resolutions dates back to the ancient Babylonians, who were among the first civilizations to have a record of a New Year celebration. Still celebrated today, but of course records of Akitu can date the celebration back over 4,000 years. While Akitu can roughly be translated from Sumerian to barley, the festival didn't just observe the sowing of the first crop of the new year. It served a far more politically important purpose, coinciding with mythical sky god Marduk's, that sounds like a character out of Skyrim, victory over the sea god Tiamat. I know that because I've just been playing Skyrim lately. Akitu was the time of the year when a new king would be crowned by the high priest, or the current regent would humble themselves before the gods to symbolically, why the fuck am I just... Do you know what? I've just been doing lots of voice stuff this morning, so my voice is like... Argh. The current regent would humble themselves before the gods to symbolically renew their rule for another year. The festival was celebrated over 12 days, with different traditions and events throughout its duration. Observations ranged from special prayers and times of reflection to communal feasts, and even a bizarre display where the high priest would slap the king to show his humility before the gods. Bitch! That's so random. Okay. Because I always skim read these before I put them into my shows, but I didn't read that specific line. It's just, bitch slap the king. Oof, I can just see that going really, really badly. I will say that I'm a little bit disappointed that this doesn't really kind of delve into, New Year's resolutions. It tells us about celebrating New Year's celebrations, but not the history of New Year's resolutions, which kind of sucks a little bit. But at least we know, I mean, from what I can sort of gather from this, there's probably always been some kind of form of resolutions, but obviously back in those days, it would have related more to survival as opposed to, these days it's like, oh, I'm going to drink a little bit less. Oh, I'm going to go to the gym. And these things are related to your lifestyle and how you live, but they're a bit more, I don't know. It's less about pure survival and more about kind of aesthetic things or spiritual things or whatever. Whereas this, in the past, almost kind of implies that their focus was, we survived this year, what can we do better to survive next year kind of vibes. Maybe. I don't know. I'm theorizing based on the information that's there. In any case, I'll give you a little bit of an update on where I'm at, and also my New Year's resolutions, which I never do, ever. But I do kind of set myself goals for the year. I don't know if that's really the same. Like, I guess I don't believe in New Year's resolutions in that, like, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to achieve this year. I'm going to hold myself accountable. Like, I just don't think that humans are like that. Like, it's really hard to 100% stick to a goal for an entire year. It's not to say it's not possible. People do it all the time. It's just that I think that it works better when you kind of ease yourself into things step by step. You know, I've always felt that works better. Like, if you're going to quit smoking, for example, they say it's always a bit better to just kind of cut down and then quit, as opposed to just quitting cold turkey. You know, it's because it's such a huge change, and it's a huge habit to break, you know. With smokers, you always hear about how they're trying to do something like replace it with something else, like eating or chewing gum and stuff like that. Like, just kind of the regularity of going out and having a cigarette, the habit of doing that, you know, needs to be replaced with something else for some people. And we also know that obviously human beings have an addictive personality. So it's, you know, it's going to be quite common that you struggle to give things up, especially if you try and do it cold turkey, you know. Anyways, I thought I would tell you about kind of my thoughts at the moment and where I'm headed. So aging has been on my mind a lot lately. And aging in a strange way, because obviously, look, I'm 32, you know, I'm no spring chicken, but I'm also not an ancient old man either. You look different, you feel different, right? But I have the unique kind of addition of having a couple of conditions. So, and I'll be covering this in a future show. So the beginning of last year, I started obviously getting a white eyelash, and it was pretty crazy when it first happened. And then, you know, I, at the advice of those around me, I obviously went to the doctors to get it checked out, and nothing could be found, like no underlying health conditions or anything. It was just one of those like crazy things. But I did some digging, I looked into it, and obviously, as I mentioned, we'll be doing a show on the two conditions that I have, which is vitiligo and poliosis. We'll be deep diving into that. But basically what it's meant is that I have this white eyelash. I've been growing a lot more white hair in general, which I started getting around the age of like 21, 22. And I started getting a bunch the beginning of last year, and then obviously more recently. And the best answer I've received as far as like what it could be, because I've not been given anything definitive, and I've had to kind of do this on my own because GPs have been just not helpful at all. What I can see is it's stress-induced poliosis and vitiligo, and from the research that I've done, it kind of appears that these conditions are genetic. And I know that I have someone in my family distantly who had vitiligo, so that's the link there. And often these conditions can lay dormant. They may never show up, but other times they might show up at birth in the form of a birthmark, or, you know, sometimes with people with vitiligo, you see like they have what's called, I think it's non-segmental vitiligo, which means it's like everywhere, as opposed to like one part of your body or certain parts of your body. In any case, it can come out as a result of something. So mine was stress induced. That's what brought on my vitiligo and poliosis. And you often hear about this happening, say, with people with alopecia. Stress can, you know, push that along, and some people like lose their hair for good. Other people lose it for a bit, then it grows back, then it comes out, and it's very often tied to things like stress. And obviously, like, the answer to that is, oh, Christian, why are you so stressed? Why don't you just chill out? And it's like, if you lived my life for 5 seconds, you get it. But I have kind of looked at that and thought, you know what? There is little things I can do to change that. Ultimately, the big thing is that I'm not happy with where my life is. Last year was one of the hardest years of my life for quite some time. It wasn't all terrible, but when you look at the overall and what I was dealing with day to day, it just got pretty ridiculous after a while. And there's no wonder I was stressed. I mean, towards the end of that year, I just kind of mentally checked out, and I was just trying to survive. I was like, I just have to get to the end, and then I'll be able to rest and then figure it out in the new year. And I had like 9 days of just being with my partner and just kind of recovering, I guess, just like, first it was recovery, and then I got sick, of course. But that showed me like how worn down my body was and just everything. But I can't tell you like how relaxed I felt afterwards. Like, I feel really relaxed coming to this new year. I've already had a day back at work, and it was a crazy day, and I've been really busy with creative work, but I feel good. And I think that a big thing that I've changed is how I approach just my time, I guess. I don't punish myself for not being as constructive, but I do kind of recognize that some days you need to push yourself. If you've got it in you, push hard, get as much as you can done. And on the days when you've not got as much, just get a bit done so that something got done. And, that's the key thing is that consistency across time. Not every day is going to be just like an absolute success. There's going to be days where you just get not much done, or even just like days where you just have to rest. So I'm trying to kind of get into that swing of things and make that my new approach. But other things I'm trying to do are eliminate just like regular drinking. I want to try to reduce that to kind of once a week type deal. Coming off of a productive week, I think that's much better and much healthier than, say, drinking most nights. Because I wasn't like getting drunk or anything, but it's just a bad habit I picked up, because especially in the last 3-4 months of last year, it was just like kind of like a release thing. And I understand now like how easily people fall into that, like, oh, I'll just have a glass of wine with dinner. Oh, I'll just have a few cans after work. Like, it's crazy how that creeps up on you. And before you know it, you're doing it most nights. And I was like, wow, it's kind of crazy. Because it's the convenience factor as well. You come home, you're knackered. I know I'm going to stay up a few hours anyway. Because I'm not one of those people that can immediately go to bed. I don't know how people can do that off the back of a day of work. Like, I need time to rest and wind down so that my mind enables me to actually relax before I can do stuff like that. But anyway, that's the key, is to reduce that habit, and also just unnecessary spending in general. Try to be more productive with my time. And look at like what are the main things that have been achieved every single day. So, for example, today, I suppose the biggest one would be I got this podcast recorded, and I also am on top of my emails and just like my admin stuff, and I got a few auditions done. So, like, if I didn't do anything else for the rest of the day now, I've at least achieved those things, and then say the morning of tomorrow I can get more done before I go to work. Just things like that. Like, I always feel better when I know I've gotten things accomplished, as opposed to days where, I just went to work, got home, just play games. I've got nothing creative done and I'm miserable kind of thing. I suppose this would define a resolution, but it's like it's more of a long-term goal rather than like I need to achieve this in 2026. But what I really want to do is predominantly earn money from creative jobs. That's been one of my goals, if not the main goal, for such a long time now. Because I'm just kind of sick of doing customer service jobs. I'm too old for it. I've done like 11 years combined in customer service. I did a bunch of years in marketing and sales and stuff, but I don't want to do these jobs anymore. I never wanted to in the first place. I'm just kind of fed up. I know exactly what I want to do with my life. I want to do music. I want to do acting. I want to do content creation for a living. I want to do this for a living. It's the only things in my life that feel right. The rest of the jobs just feel like things I have to do and force myself to do. And that's another thing as well. I think sometimes people look at it like, well, can't you find something positive in those jobs that you have to do? And I'm like, no, like I've found everything that is positive, but most of it is just pushing yourself in something that you hate. And of course, a lot of people don't get it, and their response will just be like, why don't you just do something you love? And it's like, you try doing that, pal. It's not that simple. Nothing in life is simple. At least when it pertains to pursuing your dreams, I think. Other things are simple, but when it comes down to chasing your dreams and trying to create a life for yourself that is yours and is what you want and not someone else's recommendation or vision of what your life should be, it's really difficult to achieve that. And it takes time. I mean, this is now year 7 of me pursuing these creative goals. And who knows if it will work this year, a year from now, 2 years from now. I don't know. I'm tired of even thinking about that anymore. I'm just focused on trying to make things happen and trying to be the best that I can be. And I guess earn it, deserve it. I don't know. Maybe I just don't deserve to be successful yet. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe I thought I was good enough and there's still more work to be done. I don't know. But I try to make the most out of what is. I try to be grateful for the few things I do have. I just keep trying, Moving on. I have the goal of releasing new music this year. I have about 6 songs in production. So they're done, they're recorded, they just need to be produced. And I'm waiting on my producer to do that. And then once I'm happy with them, we can sign them off, get them released. I also plan on recording new music this year in addition to that. So basically just like a couple of EPs, some singles. And then I'm also writing my next album very slowly. I'm kind of putting together some ideas. There's a lot of ideas in the works. I don't know what it's all going to end up being, but there's a lot. There is a lot. And I don't know. It's exciting what could come of all of this, but guess we'll have to see. Moving on. Let's jump into New Year's resolutions in general. Question number 1. Why do you think New Year's resolutions are so popular if so many people abandon them? It's like I said earlier, it's all about trend setting and people jumping on the bandwagon, It's like, I always think of like popular TV shows. Everyone's like, oh, have you not seen this show yet? Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's watching it. And it's like, sometimes that can actually be the thing that puts me off doing that. Some of them I get, like, you want to start the year off right, get a gym membership. But so many people start these things and then after like a few months give up because they had no intention in the first place of actually seeing it through, and it's consistency, when I was training for about a couple of years, like there were days when I really didn't want to go. And those were the main days that you really had to push yourself to go. And afterwards you felt really rewarded because you you'd pushed yourself and gotten the most out of yourself. And yeah, maybe it's not the best session ever. I mean, it's hard to tell, but some of those sessions were. And I remember talking to personal trainers about this, and they said that a lot of these things are cyclical. Like, it was a guy I knew who'd been training for 6 years on and off, and there's times he didn't train at all, and then he came back to it, and he loves training. Like, it's his real passion in life. But he kind of made it clear to me that, like, these things don't have to be like something you're constantly doing all the time. You're allowed to take breaks. You're allowed to come back to things, you know. For example, I took a little break from acting, mostly because I had to, because life was just pushing me in a direction where I simply didn't have time to pursue it. But I still, in the background, was putting together plans to get back into it. You know, I was still doing voice acting. I was still talking with people and such, and still doing things outside of that sphere. And then the minute that I had control again, boom, cut my hair, got my photos done, got my all my show reel re-uploaded. I'm sending out emails again. I'm looking for an agent. We're back in the game, baby. Like, it's one of those. Like, it's okay to take a step back to then take a step forward again, in my humble opinion. But to answer this question in general, I think that it's a lack of consistency, and I also think laziness. So many people are just lazy, and they just can't be bothered, and they never really wanted it in the first place. I mean, look, I've been pursuing these goals right now for 7 years. This is my second time pursuing music. You know, when I pursued music the first time, I pursued it just as hard. If you really want something in life, you will sacrifice for it, and you'll push. And sometimes it's really going to suck, and there'll be more rejections and more failures than successes. But that's what makes the successes all the more rewarding. I mean, for example, there was a point in time when the concept of releasing an album for me was completely out of the question. Like, pipe dream. And here we are. What was it, like 4 or 5 years later, and I've already released a debut album, and I'm talking about releasing some EPs and doing my second record. Like, everything starts with an idea and then becomes reality once you decide it can become a reality. And once you decide, you know what, it's no longer a pipe dream, it's a case of how and when. That's the key. Question number 2. Do you agree that resolutions are a waste of time or just poorly designed? You know, it's mixed feelings. Resolutions as a concept are not a bad idea. I believe in kind of the Japanese concept of continuous growth, continuous improvement, sorry, to be specific. And I think it's relative in everyone's life. Like, you don't have to wait until the beginning of a year to, you know, change something about your life. Now, if you've decided that's the point when you want to start, you know, when it makes sense, I get it. Like, it makes sense in the terms of like how the year kind of winds down to an end. Everything goes quiet around Christmas, New Year's, and there's time to reflect and wind down and re-energize and rest. So it makes sense that you would then jump into the new year with a sort of a new lease of life. You know, that's exactly what I've done. It's a bit slower than I anticipated, but then it's like sub-zero outside and it's middle of winter and it's so you just do what you can. But I don't know. I guess this all comes down to like accountability. Human beings holding themselves accountable and being consistent, like I said before. So, no, they're not a waste of time. I just think human beings need to be more consistent with their resolutions, maybe. Maybe the word has become tainted because people are not consistent with their resolutions. But then some people pull it out the park and pull it off. You know, some people are the exception to the rule. So, there you go. Question number 3. What is tying goals to a specific date? Why is tying goals to a specific date a flawed concept? Like I said, because you can start new goals at any time. You don't need permission. You can any time. You can do it right now if you want. Who cares? Who's there telling you have to do otherwise? It's not necessarily a bad thing to tie it to a specific goal, because it can give you something to work towards. I think it's just this key of like, don't limit yourself to a specific time frame. If you feel you want to change something, change it. Oh, okay, it's the 17th now, but I should wait until the first of the month. No, just do it now. Fuck it. Maybe it'll feel weird, but hey, like you've started now, you can track it from now. Why not? Question number 4. Are people more likely to fail because of the resolution itself or because of unrealistic expectations? I think the question answers it right in of itself there. Unrealistic expectations, of course. I heard someone talk about this the other day, and I think it's spot on. With New Year's resolutions, people often set big goals. Like, okay, for instance, if it was me and I was setting an unrealistic expectation this year, it would be something like, I want to be a Hollywood actor. And it's like, that can take a lifetime. There's so many factors involved in that. It is unrealistic. Not to say that I couldn't do it or someone else couldn't do it, but it's unrealistic in the sense that, like, these things don't happen overnight. It's stepping stones. It's a certain bit of luck. It's progress over time. All these different factors falling into place to lead you to that one opportunity where it becomes a reality, right? I think people set these big goals and then are disappointed at the end of the year because it's like, okay, let's take that goal as an example. You want to be a Hollywood actor, right? And you set that goal as your New Year's resolution. So if you get to the end of that year and you're not a Hollywood actor, have you then failed that goal? I would disagree with that notion, because if you've made any progress towards that goal within that year, who's to say you couldn't achieve that goal in the next year or the year after that? Maybe all of the things you're doing now are setting up that reality, that goal being realized. I think people get too hung up on time, and I understand, like, look, time is limited. Time is of the essence. It's the one thing we always lose and never gain. Like, I do understand, I do get it. But at the same time, things take time. And in this day and age, we're in such a rush. Everyone's in a rush to grow up. Everyone's in a rush to just get to the next thing. No one's really sitting in the moment, living in the moment. And there are people, I shout it all the time to the rooftops, like, live in the moment. And people think you're just this airhead who's like, oh, yeah. Well, you need to get with the program, bro. Like, come on. And it's like, no. That is the program. That is the point. When you're on a deathbed, you're not going to think about, like, oh, I wish I'd spent more time working. Like, I wish I'd spent more time earning. I wish I'd earned more money. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, did you achieve the things you wanted to achieve? Did you make the most out of your time? Like, I was reviewing skill sets earlier because I was applying for an acting agency, and you had to input all of the skills that you have and, like, the different things you could do, right? And it kind of dawned on me as I was doing that I've experienced so many different things through taking on different jobs, through just studying, trying different things in life. It made me realize, like, I've experienced so much in life already, and I have all this experience and all these skill sets that I never would have had if I didn't, like, throw myself out there and try. It never would have happened. And yet here we are, and I'm 32 and I have just as much motivation as when I started. But now there's the wisdom. Now there's applying experience to reality. There's looking at things with a fresh set of eyes, like approaching it a bit differently, but still having that excitement of that kind of childhood excitement of, oh, where could this go? Where should we take this next? Like, I'm not afraid to take risks. And the older I get, the more people say like, oh, what if it doesn't work out? What if, like you're miserable? Like, it never works out. Don't you think you should get a real job? Blah, 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 blah. Like, I've heard this stuff since I was a kid and it's tiresome. I'm never going to listen to you people ever. I don't care. Because even if I did get to the end of my road and I was like a failure, I'd look back at everything I did all over the years and be like, you know what? It was a road worth traveling. Because look at all this experience I had. Look at how much I made out of life. I never would have done that had I just sat in a little job that I hated and, just accepted this idea that chasing your dreams is like a fallacy, is like a bad idea. I will never believe that, I don't care if people want to call me stubborn or people want to call me an airhead or say I have my head in the clouds. At the end of the day, they're not experiencing what I'm experiencing. They haven't experienced what I've experienced. They haven't seen what I've seen, and they never will, because they never took the risk themselves. They were too afraid to go out there and really make the most of life. And that's the reality. The more you're prepared to do that, the more crazy things you experience in life, and the more you grow as an individual, and the more you have to give to those around you, to your loved ones. I'm starting to reach the age now where I'm like, hey, maybe I'll be a husband, maybe I'll be a father. And if that happens, look at this experience I have. Look at these lessons I can teach. I sure as hell wouldn't have learned any of that stuff if I'd have stayed in a crappy desk job that I hated and just was bitter at the world and thought, oh, I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. Like, no, I'll always be the guy to tell you to chase your dreams. I don't care. Whatever it takes, man. Just go out there, chase your dreams, because that very notion in of itself will push you to be a better human being. So there it is. Maybe that went off on a tangent. I don't know. I apologize. No, I don't apologize. Fuck it. Question number 5. How does the fresh start mindset help or hurt motivation? I don't think it can ever hurt your motivation. It's just ideal, isn't it? To be in this mindset of what was before no longer matters. What matters is this moment. Fresh start, fresh canvas. Let's try again. That's how I'm looking at right now. Like, I'm not looking at what happened last year or the year before. I'm like, okay, what about right this second? What have I done? What am I achieving? What am I setting myself up for? Like, I look at this month right now. I am so busy with the podcast, with acting, with just setting things up. And it's exciting and it's motivating. And I'm just like, oh, what's next? Like, what's next? I'm buried in the work. I'm invested in the work. And that's motivating in of itself. So I think always subscribe to the fresh start mindset, I think. And, leave the past where it belongs. Unless you really need to do some soul searching and think about some things that have happened and spend some time with that. Like, I understand the importance of that. But as far as it pertains to moving forward, live in the fresh start mindset. I completely am on board with that. Question number 6. Does publicizing resolutions, posting them online, telling friends, actually increase accountability? I think it depends on who's around you. I mean, let's be real. If you've got friends around you that are invested in you and are pushing you, they'll hold you accountable when you're out with them. When, they see you, they hear you talk or whatever, like, they're going to hold you accountable. Many other people won't. I've always thought with certain things, especially if there's a lot of, let's say you're doing like a weight loss goal, right? And you've got people invested in you doing that, strangers even, and a lot of them, you're going to feel the pressure of it. And, that can backfire. And for certain people, that can be maybe a detriment. But I think for a lot more people, it's motivating. It's like, oh, yeah, they believe in me. I believe I can do this. I don't want to let them down. I don't want to let myself down. And maybe that pressure can be a bad thing, but I understand sometimes it can be a negative thing as well. So answer the question, Christian. Yes, I think it does increase accountability for the most part. Question number 7. What alternatives does the podcast suggest instead of New Year's resolutions? Well, I guess my whole point was to set yourself smaller goals, which, has nothing really to do with resolutions. I think just as a concept in general, set yourself small goals that lead to the bigger goals. That's really what I'm trying to illustrate. That's my point with this, is build over time. Set those little goals over time and do them one by one. Like, so for example, right now, what have I achieved? Okay, so I got my photos on my website. I got my photos on all my profiles. I've updated my profiles. I'm still in the process of updating them all, but they're updated. I'm back on this website called Spotlight for acting. I've chased up for music, so I know that there'll be a rough date for that, for when that happens. A few different things, really, just chasing up on these little things and making sure every day there's progress. Like I mentioned earlier, just continuous progress, I think, is a better idea than just setting these grandiose resolutions, these grandiose statements, which, if you fail one of them, it can feel like a really big deal, and maybe that might demotivate you to the point where you don't want to do anything. And I think that's the worst kind of place you could fall into, and I don't want anyone to fall into that space. Are habits, systems, or routines more effective than goal-based resolutions, and why? I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like that old thing where they talk about it takes 30 days to build a habit or whatever. Yeah, I think you have to let things breathe. Systems can. I mean, I suppose this really comes down to like how you work as a human being. If you find things that work for you, stick to that. Like if you look at gym and working out, one person's routine would work for one person, but just would be totally ineffective for another, because the way we train and what our bodies need is different. Dietary requirements are different. Energy, our bodies, physicality, everything is different. So I guess it's more about finding what's most effective for you individually and running with that. How might focusing on small, consistent changes work better than big yearly goals? It's all kind of the same ballpark, really. But I think the key, as I mentioned before, is just kind of, I think it feels less overwhelming. And that's kind of my whole point. If it's less overwhelming, you'll be more motivated to achieve the goals. And then before you know it, you start achieving the bigger goals, And you might not even realize, because you're so focused on the smaller things, on the day-to-day, that you're like, boom, oh wow, look at where we are now. Look at how much we've achieved now. To give you an example, at the end of last year, I was really worried about getting guests for the podcast. I was like, there was even a sliver of a thought where I was like, should I end the podcast? It's been 5 years. The goal was always at least get to 10 years. And, I was really downtrodden about it. I felt like after 340 plus episodes and 5 years of doing the show that it wouldn't be this difficult to find guests, or it wouldn't be a problem. And then I was like, is it the end? And no, I just needed to give it time. Now I'm booked up, or like I've got enough shows to last me about 3 months. We're wide open for the rest of the year. So if there's any people listening that want to be on the show or have any recommendations for people they'd like to see on the show, let me know. And of course, I'm always reaching out to people, and people occasionally reach out to me, and it's one of those continuous things. But the point being that things can change, but sometimes you have to let them breathe a little bit before they can change. So that's a key in it, I guess. Have you ever made a New Year's resolution? What happened to it? Yeah, I've made plenty and they never worked out. And, you know, I don't punish myself for it because, again, like I said earlier, they're just grandiose. And I don't know. I think there has to be a lot of existing motivation there that is completely unrelated to the goals themselves, you know? Like, for example, if it's a weight loss one, that would have been something you're aiming to do for a long time. You know what I mean? Or maybe better example is when I got my hair cut. I got my hair cut like the first week of December, I think. Something like that. And or it was like the sort of the end of November going into early December, something like that. Now, I thought about waiting until the new year. But like there was just one day when I felt really just agitated and I'm like, you know, it's time. I want to just get this done now. And, you know, it's funny, as soon as I decided that and I started putting things into place, everything sped up like that, like it was meant to happen at that time. And even towards the end of the year there, I started getting more kind of little opportunities coming in here and there. And it felt like the year was already beginning before it had begun. So I don't think that this time scale factor is really important. I think that instead of maybe looking at New Year's resolutions, we should look at periods of time. Maybe even the 4 seasons. You know, maybe it'd be better to be like, all right, what are the summer goals? What are the winter goals? What are the autumn goals? And approach it like that. Because the seasons are what, like 3 months, 4 months or something, give or take. Maybe there'd be a lot less pressure if it was like that. Maybe that would be a lot less daunting than an entire year, you know? Because if you fail it like 4 months in, you're gutted because it feels like all the progress you've made was for nothing and you've let yourself down and the whole year is ruined. But if it's like you only had like 3-4 months to do it, or 2-3 months, that's a lot more achievable. And when you break it down, it's like, oh, that's only like 60 days, 90 days. I can do that. I can do 20 more days, you know? Like when you look at it like that, I think it's a lot easier to consume. And by that logic, I think people would be much more motivated to approach those goals and try to actually achieve them, in theory. Do you feel more motivated by long-term goals or short-term progress? A lot of these questions are just, yeah, they're very just kind of the same thing, aren't they? I mean, that's hard to say, really. I suppose long term, because they're more gratifying when you've achieved them because you've been waiting for so long. But short term goals feel just as good, just as gratifying. Short term progress, like, I mean, I think both. I don't know. It's kind of the same. I think it depends on when they happen and what actually is being achieved. Is there a better time of year for self improvement than January the 1st? Now that's an interesting question. Other than the seasons thing that I've pitched, would there be a better date? Maybe April Fool's. Joke's on you, pal. Hey, no. I don't know. I think any time in winter is generally good because things go quieter. It gets really cold. Sometimes it's too cold to go out, and I think that it's a lot easier to get things done at a time like that. You know, summer is busy. People want to go out. You want to enjoy the sunshine. It's you're not as concerned with going to the gym, for example, or working on things. You want to kind of rest, enjoy the time, you know, and maybe that's how things should work, is in cycles, you know, cycles of rest and play and then cycles of work and stuff, as opposed to just continuous never-ending work with occasional breaks. How does social media and cultural pressure influence the way people make resolutions? I think negatively. I think there's way too much societal pressure and social media pressure, and it's unrealistic, and it doesn't show. I mean, for all you know, those people could be lying about a lot of those things. Like, how do you know? Do you see them every second of every day? No. I mean, like, I've always been honest. Like, I set myself a goal of not drinking in January, and I fucked it up like 2 days in, and I told my community, like, yeah, you know, I just didn't achieve that one, but I'm not that bothered about it. Like, I'll achieve other goals, more important goals to me, right? But I wasn't afraid to talk about it. You know, I didn't feel pressure, because it's like, I think the most important thing is, what do you think? How do you feel? You know, you shouldn't worry about social media. Social media is a construct. It's a design. It's mostly bollocks. It's full of just AI slop crap these days anyway. And, you know, a lot of the people that are making you feel bad, they're hypocrites, or, you know, they only post the good stuff. They never put the important stuff, the progress, the process. You know, like, if you've been following me for years and you see me achieving any amount of success, you will have seen the good, the bad, the ugly. You will have seen the whole journey. You will understand why it's so gratifying and why it means so much. And it'll be maybe even gratifying for you too, to have seen that and to have seen it play out, you know? Because I never wanted to hide that. I think that by trying to hide the bad things in life and trying to hide progress and stuff like that, you're hiding humanity. You're hiding the reality of it. And, you know, the reality is people mostly don't care about the journey. They don't care about people when they're trying. They care about people that have succeeded. You know, like when all the people come out and go, oh, I always believed in you. Did you? Where were you? Where were you when I needed belief? You know, I know that when I eventually achieve my goals, the people I'm going to care about are the ones that were here from day one, that were always by my side. You know, those people. You pay attention to the people that helped you out, people that gave you a chance. Like, you don't pay attention to these people that just came out of the woodwork, out of nowhere, who just didn't care, because all they care about is, you know, the ending, the party at the end. Like, screw it, man. Do resolutions create unnecessary guilt or shame when people don't stick to them? Yeah, I think I've kind of outlined that earlier, but yes, they do. I mean, like, let's say you've got a diet that you've planned out, right? And on day 29, you fucked up and you had something. Who's to say you couldn't continue on that diet? It's just one day. It's just once. Keep going. Fuck it. Don't let that be the end. You know? I often think it's the people around you that make it worse. Like, oh, you failed your resolution. You've let yourself down. No, I haven't. I made progress. Meaningful progress. Yeah, I guess my whole point with this is we're approaching this all wrong. That's my point. Who benefits most from the idea of New Year's resolutions? Individuals, companies, or society? I mean, I've never really seen companies run with it. I suppose individuals, really, because society will try and make it into this thing, and they'll make it into a marketing ploy, just like everything else in life. But the individuals are the ones that really benefit, because if they succeed in a goal, then that's the ultimate achievement, isn't it? I did this, and I did it over a year. You know, I and that's inspiring to other people. If New Year's resolutions really are a waste of time, what should people focus on instead? If it wasn't clear before, I should hope it's clear now. Continuous improvement, smaller goals over time, consistency. These are the things that people should focus on. Should we stop making resolutions altogether, or just rethink how we approach them? Again, the question has the answer within it. My work here is done. We rethink it. Absolutely. We rethink how we approach New Year's resolutions. And look, I'll leave you with this, okay? If you do believe in New Year's resolutions, great. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm saying do what works for you. if you don't believe in them because people have made you feel bad because when you tried to do them, it was not a success or something, right? Approach things differently. If it would work for you to do a New Year's resolution and to stick to it for a year, then do that. Do what works for you. That's the point. I didn't realize that this show would become this today. I wasn't really coming into this with the mindset of, I'm going to make a point. I'm going to make a statement, a really serious statement about New Year's resolutions for some fucking reason. I mean, I guess it's the first show of the year and you want to start off on a good note, I guess. I had a few people say that my Christmas episode was a bit miserable. I still tried to sprinkle that with some positivity. Some people said I was the Grinch. Vilma, I'm not the Grinch. Come on. No. I just try to be real about things, you know. I give you my honest opinion, but I don't try to bury things, you know. Like I said, like if you believe in this, great. Do what works for you. Here was my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope in some way they were useful to you. I hope you enjoyed this show. Let me know what else you would like me to hear. Hear? What? What else you would like to hear? Doesn't matter what I hear. Unless that's important to you, I guess. I don't know. I'm just rambling now. If there's anything you want to see on this show in the coming year, write to me. Message me. Join the Discord. Let me know. If there's any guests you would like to see on the show, please let me know. And I will get right on that. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Christian Reeve podcast. Happy New Year, everybody. And best of luck if you are pursuing some New Year's resolutions. All the best.